Everyone, I just want to make sure we have all of our panelists with us and that they can see and hear. All right. Welcome, welcome. Thank you everyone for being here on this really, I think, auspicious day. I think it's the first of spring. We're about to go into the new moon Aries season. It's like, wow, what a time to bring all of these really incredible women speaking about very important topics together. So again, thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to also be keeping an eye on admitting people. So forgive me if I'm looking in two places, but I just want to make sure everyone who wants to be here is with us. So again, thank you everyone for coming to the Empower Women Summit. We'll get a chance to speak to some true experts in this roundtable virtual fashion that's celebrating the wisdom of the full spectrum of womanhood. I'm Dana Wood. I am the founder of Integrative Counsel. We are a group practice of mental health practitioners where we combine out-of-the-box creative thinking with solid scientific research so our clients get the best of both worlds. We also truly understand that mental health is more than just its symptoms, and so we focus on the meaning and the growth gained by the journey towards wholeness. And so this too is a journey, and it is not just about one place in what it means to be a woman in today's society, but the full spectrum. And of course, it's not linear. And again, why we're getting to speak with a lot of different women at different places in that spectrum. Oh, I'm admitting a few more. I'm rarely the host, so Jen generally is, so I give you credit for having to multitask. So I'm going to kick this off by just having all of our panelists briefly introduce themselves. You're going to just say your name, who you are, and then we're going to go back around and each panelist is going to introduce their topic for this evening. You'll have about 5 minutes to share in depth about why this topic is at the forefront for you, why you think it's important, and of course, how people can find you. Really, this is a chance to plant the seed this evening. This is not meant to cover each topic in depth. That's going to be impossible in 5 minutes, but it does plant the seed and allow for active conversation. At the end, we will have a Q&A session. You'll also learn how you can learn more from these experts, so please stay tuned. So starting with the Integrative Counsel team, Cassie and Allie, can you share who you are and what you're going to be talking about this evening?
Hello, I'm Cassie. I'm the director here at Integrative Counsel. And this is my best friend, Allie.
I'm Allie. I'm the office manager and the editor-in-chief at Integrative Counsel.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about magic and sisterhood. And that's what our offering is all about. Yeah. It's really fun and really exciting, and we're experts on it.
Yeah,
and we are and play. Oh yes, and play, because we are silly best friends who care about mental wellness, and that's why we're qualified. Yes. There she is.
Perfect. Lauren, will you share more about who you are and what your offering is this evening?
Hi, I'm Lauren Mishkin, LMHC, and hi to all these faces that I've seen emails to, not yet seen. And I will be talking about the power of the pelvic floor, briefly, how to regulate autonomic nervous system through the pelvic floor muscles.
Again, really important. And I know your specialty is in trauma. And so talking about how those two are related, I think is incredibly important for women especially. Yes, so excited to hear more. Jen, you are we call you friend of Integrative Counsel because we collaborate often on many live events, etc. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about who you are? I know you might not be able to join us when we talk specifically about our topic because you have a client later, but just share a little bit about who you are, why you're a friend of IC, and the topic that I will likely introduce later, but that we developed together.
Yes, I'm happy to. I'm sorry I'm in my jacket. I like ran in here to make sure I got to see a little bit of this before my client. I am Jennifer Carey, and Dana and I go way back. For those of you who already know us, we met at the University of Florida, and we love always sharing our story about being in Spain together on a trip, learning flamenco and Spanish, and talking about ways that we could bring all of the humanistic and empathy and effective communication skills that we were learning in grad school to everyone, to different communities. And so that has been a mission that she and I have shared that has evolved and in so many ways. And the most recent way that we collaborated was talking about death. And so it's evolved. Like you think about like our basic communication skills training is now talking about death and letting go, and how death can even mean letting go of parts of ourselves, and how difficult that is, and how anxiety provoking that is. But if we can talk about it more openly, perhaps it doesn't have to be so charged. So
and creatively. Mm-hmm,
yes, yes.
An expressive arts activity around that. Yes. Thank you, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Introducing our esteemed, truly honored that you all here panelists. Hillary, do you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you'll be sharing about this evening?
Sure. So I'm Hillary Talbott Rowland, and I am an acupuncturist and herbalist and coach, and my specialty has been fertility and obstetrics for the past 14 years. I think that's just such an amazing time to support a person, not only because you get to support them, but you also get to influence the health of the next 2 generations of their family. So my offerings are going to be fertility centric, but really kind of how you get to embody the divine feminine when you're choosing to have a child, because thankfully that is still a choice, and how to really do some deep diving into understanding your reasons behind it, how to co-create with the universe so that you don't feel like it's all on you as the person with the womb in the partnership. And also we talk about, how to chart your cycles without stress, because that is one of the most important pieces of feedback that I get from women, is that it's stressful to start their day with charting their cycle. So kind of got some tips for you on how to do that in a non-stressed way, and to be able to sort of not just know the clues your body's telling you, but then also how to sync with the seasons of your cycle, because it's like we have all 4 seasons in 28 days.
Wow, so cool. I can't wait to hear more. Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah.
Sarah, could you share about your offering this evening and who you are?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. My name is Sarah Gold, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I have an online practice, and I work in both Florida and California. I am also a student of anti-racism work, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And I'm excited to be here tonight to share a little bit about it, because I do think that there's a lot of, intersection between mental health work and talking about race and racism, because it tends to be a very emotional topic, and there are a lot of psychological aspects to it. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, Sarah. Yes. Kristina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristina Rich. I'm a yoga instructor here in St. Pete and a huge self-love advocate. My topic of specialty today is going to be self-love and loving yourself naked, and just diving into the process of that and what it's like embodying love in your being.
Thank you, Kristina. And one of my favorite yoga teachers at the Body Electric. Your rocket class is awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tracy, were you able to log in, Tracy? Are you here?
I'm finally here.
Yay. Oh, there you are. It's so good to see you.
Hi, I finally made it. I'm so sorry. I hope you can hear me. I'm on my phone. My computer was attacked by some kind of spam situation. So, but I'm here now. I'm delighted to be here amongst the beautiful women. Um, I'm Tracy and I'm in Florida. I am a channeled writer and poet and also an intuitive healer. And I'm so happy to be sharing Initiation by Fire, the spiritual power of menopause. It's very near and dear to me because it's something that, like, going through this change has empowered me and helped me really feel like I'm really coming into my own power. And I love talking about this and disrupting the narrative around growing old and aging as a woman. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so excited that you're here. All right, we are going to dive right in and hear more from each of our panelists around your topic specifically. Again, this is about planting the seed. And we're going to start with Hillary.
So I picked the topics that I did because I feel like the current culture around women's reproductive rights, it's never been more important to learn how to chart your cycle without technology. I think tech apps are great. I'm a huge proponent of them and wearable tech, but I think that we have to really be mindful of what's happening with our data and where it's going. And I think that just charting your cycle on paper can be one of those ways to protect yourself, depending upon what state that you live in, because you don't ever quite know how that might be potentially used against you for political grandstanding. So that's, my big gist of that is that it's not as hard as that we've been led to believe that it is to chart your cycle. I think that that's a big part that is missing from our health education, especially when you learn to look at your natural ebbs and flows of your hormones as the 4 seasons within your 28-day cycle. When you do that, it makes life quite a bit easier in the way that you can just understand that there's certain places that you might feel like you want to get out and meet people, say in the follicular phase of your cycle or when you ovulate, and that you're probably prone to saying yes to too many things in that part of your cycle because you're excited and you feel good from all the estrogen and testosterone. And then as soon as we ovulate and progesterone comes online, that tends to make us want to sink back. We might have a little bit more trouble engaging and just basically peopling in general. So I love to teach women how to understand their cycle from that perspective, because I think it normalizes a lot of the natural up and downs that we feel in a given menstrual cycle, in addition to just teaching you when in fact you are fertile, and what days you are most fertile. And that is to help with getting pregnant, but then also for natural birth control methods. I think that that is something as women, at least in my generation, I guess I am technically a Gen Z and was born in the 70s. We were taught how to not get pregnant. It was almost like, oh, you have your period, here's your birth control. And there wasn't a lot of emphasis on the fact that you could only get pregnant 5 days out of your cycle. So I think that that is greatly missing. And that's really part of why I wanted to do this offering, is to get it into the hands of as many women as possible, and then to really distill it down in a way that was easy for you to then teach to the other women in your communities and your families, especially those younger than you, because those are conversations that I think need to be had again. I think that that's really important for women in terms of bonding together and just normalizing their normal hormonal flows and their cycles. And realizing that they don't identify them, like that we don't have to be some women feel like held victim to their cycle. So yeah, that's a big part of why I did the offering that I did.
Hillary, I'm like, this is such important information. I don't know why we aren't taught this. It feels incredibly necessary as women to have this very basic information that we don't. And participants, please, Hillary is a wealth of knowledge. So if you have any questions, like save them to the Q&A, because she knows so much about this topic. And you also have a podcast, correct? That how can people find you and how can they tune into you if they want even more of you, Hillary?
Yeah, so if you want to listen, the podcast is called Fertile Minds Radio. And there's a big emphasis on fertility, but really on the mental emotional aspect of fertility and how we have to consider our nervous systems as well as our hormonal systems, and specifically around like how we've been conditioned to think of having children. And we go all the way through topics to parenting and postpartum, because it's, you know, a lot of my clients that come to me for acupuncture, and if you're in St. Pete, you can find me in Art of Acupuncture, but a lot of clients that come think that they're just, everything's going to be magically better when they get pregnant, which is true for a brief period of time, right? But then our kids, if you allow them to be, are your biggest teachers. So there's a lot of stuff that continues to come up in pregnancy and parenting. And so a lot of the foundational tools that I teach, like causal modeling of your thoughts and understanding how your thoughts create your feelings in non-trauma situations, along with trying to have more open conversations about trauma and how that's different and what that does in your body and how that presents in terms of fertility challenges and then sometimes birthing challenges as well. So it's really that spectrum from like, I think I might want to get pregnant until really postpartum is the bulk of what we talk about. But, you know, most of the women that listen to that show, sometimes they will contact me and say, you know, I still hear your voice in my head 5 years later as I've got this little toddler running around. So I think that it's a great show to help you understand your body, but really to also understand your mind too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you mentioned, but I just want to emphasize like how this work specifically can impact multiple generations. As parents, getting really clear on like why they're having children, and then like how that can positively impact just the ripple effect of generations beyond, I think is incredibly potent. Yes.
But yeah, because there's different pieces of health that we when we talk about health, I think we tend to focus as Americans on physical health. And that's only one piece of it, right? A lot of it also has to do with your mental health and your social conditioning and, you know, generationally, what we're passing down, what we're modeling, what was modeled for us, and sort of understanding that, you know, parents are always doing the best that they can. But like you get an opportunity if you really want to dig in and look at that about how you might want to do things the same or differently. And I think that that's sort of missing from the conversation around when to have a child. It's really more about birth control. So yeah, that's, you know, and the physical piece too, like a lot of people don't understand how you take care of yourself within the year leading up to falling pregnant can have genetic implications for the next 2 generations, especially things around like insulin resistance. So that for me is like really important to help, because as parents or as people that want to be parents or the matriarch of a family, even though it's hard to look that far out, like a little bit of work now can really set the tone for your entire family unit or the spirit of your family going forward.
Wow, really, really important. I'm so glad you're talking about this and saying it to as many avenues as we'll hear it. Thank you for being a part of it.
Thanks for having this, and thank you to everybody who took time out of your day to come to this call. That's like your biggest asset that you have. So big thank you to everybody that's here.
Thanks, Hillary. Sarah, could you please share about the importance of your topic for women especially?
Sure. Well, I'll first say that, you know, I'm here as a therapist, as a woman, and as a white person. And my topic was really intended and meant for myself and other white women to learn more about what it is to be a white woman, a white person, and how to become better allies, true allies to people of color. And in doing so, to make the world a better place for everybody, first and foremost for people of color, but it also, when we benefit the people in our society, everyone is benefited, and therefore everyone is suffering from this thing we call racism and white supremacy. So, for me, and I think for many white women, during the pandemic, there was this real opportunity to have time to read and become more literate about racism. And I think that, it created this space to sort of go deeper as, the world around us changed, and we could really kind of come into contact with a lot more voices. At least from my perspective, there were a lot more voices out there in written form and podcast form, particularly of people of color getting to share about their experiences of interacting with white people. And in particular, white people like me, well-intentioned, well-meaning, don't want to be racist kind of white people. And I think that for me, the takeaway from a lot of those books and a lot of those podcasts and TED Talks and all of that information was just the depth of pain and suffering, and the burden felt by many people of color. And for me, it was a calling that I heard very clearly and didn't want to ignore anymore. And part of being able to ignore it at some level is an aspect of being white. And so I really honored that and took that on. And that's the piece of making this world a better place, is really, really recognizing that we as white people, can create and do create a lot of suffering and pain and harm. And so there are ways that we can do much better and truly make the world a better place. So my offering, while very much incomplete, with 3 videos, it's very short and small, and not comprehensive, but I hope to create an introduction for people to begin to either deepen their journey or begin their journey on becoming allies. So that's why I chose the topic that I chose.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I know this is like a harder topic to talk about. And I really respect you I know this was a part of your undergraduate and graduate studies too. I know this has been a lifelong interest of yours. It wasn't just sparked at the pandemic, right? But like, you actually starting the conversation in this very public format does feel somewhat risky, right? And so I credit you for just being here and allowing people to have a place to begin that journey. Yeah.
Thank you for offering the opportunity, for me to have a space to share and talk about something that I think is really, really important, and very, very impactful on many people's lives, because in fact, it is very much a taboo topic. Whiteness is something that is hidden. It's something that in general, white people are a non-racialized group. And so when we talk about becoming racialized and owning a racial identity, it is a taboo topic. And so, I understood that you might not want me here talking about this. So I also appreciate your being open to having this topic presented as part of this bundle and as part of Women's History Month. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, Sarah really is a wealth of knowledge also. I know like everyone here on the panel is a wealth of knowledge on their particular topic, like really all experts in your own right. And so please stay tuned with any questions. And I am going to turn the mic over to Kristina and share a little bit more about loving yourself naked.
Hello. Thank you again for having me on here. It's still just like opportunities like this really humble me, because I feel like I wouldn't be here today if I weren't challenged to embark myself on a self-love journey and like really discovering what that means for me. And so the fact that other people in my community and in my circle of people have just like been able to see that and then have continued to encourage me to share that with others is just, it feels like such a gift. So very appreciative of all of these spaces and all of these women and everything that everyone has shared so far. I feel like every topic that has been touched on is a part of the self-love journey in all of its different forms. And specifically loving yourself naked, I teach women's clothing optional yoga, and I've been doing it for the past 3 years. And I often hear, I could never see myself doing that from all types of women. But then for those of us that do, it like ends up being this really blissful experience where nobody wants to put their clothes on afterwards. So it's so great to be surrounded by people who want to, you know, challenge themselves in that different kind of way and show up. But for me, loving yourself naked isn't just about, you know, the accepting and loving the bare physical form that we were born into. It's more so about loving ourselves to the very core and loving every layer of expression that we put on top of that, not to hide our truest self, but more so to accentuate it and really be able to, you know, speak from our spirit of who we are and what we came to do in this world. So I think that knowing your worth is such a source of power, and really being able to have the body awareness of what's happening internally and what you're feeling and being able to regulate all of those emotions connects into how we're able to show up more authentically for ourselves and accept ourselves at whatever just part of our journey that we're in, because change is the only constant and our bodies are going to change. What we like and what we're feeling is going to change, and how we want to show up for ourselves is going to change through time. So that is being flexible with yourself and being compassionate with yourself to continue to show up on the journey and to continue to develop your own process of what it likes to, or what it's like to know those things about yourself. I think is why just self-love in general for everyone and every woman is very imperative. So that is why I am bringing this self-love workbook, a very mini introduction, I would say myself, because the topic is so broad and there are so many different ways that you can take on self-love, and a little bit of yoga as well, because that is what has really brought me closer to my own personal journey in that, and being able to move my body joyfully and feel good in it while I'm doing so. And again, the flexibility, not just in physical form, but in mental and emotional, to be able to accept all that's happening and be compassionate and kind, even in those hard, dark moments. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kristina. Loving yourself to the core, even naked, right? That's like kind of like hard to talk about. And again, you are talking about it and teaching about it and demonstrating how to do that on a daily basis. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, demonstrating it has been what, for me, I've had to realize is what attracts people to that journey, is seeing it demonstrated in other people and other women. That even when I started yoga, there were women who were in their 60s and 70s doing headstands and all kinds of stuff. And that was inspiring and empowering. I was like, I want to be like them. Like, I want to, and that was at the beginning where I couldn't hold a push-up and couldn't do all of the things that I can do now. So seeing just different women at different ages just being badass was just like, yeah, women are amazing, and like we literally can do anything that we put our mind to.
And especially when we come together, right?
Yes.
I think there is something really powerful about that.
Yes.
And I know Cassie and Allie will talk about that in a moment. Thank you so much, Kristina. I really appreciate it. Tracy, it feels like a perfect segue into, yeah.
Yes, hi. Yes, I'm so delighted, and listening to these these wonderful women speak, I find myself like nodding in agreement and realizing that everything that's been talked about so far is such an important part of the phase of life that I'm talking about, the crone years. And I know that I feel like this is such an important topic, and starting with just the idea of reclaiming the word crone. The word crone has been like, people like kind of get like set, like really upset when they're called a crone. And I really want to change that, because originally that word was an honorable thing to be called. Women of that age were held with reverence and looked to for their wisdom and for their support. And I feel like over the years, the patriarchy, as in so many things, has corrupted some of the ways that women used to be. And that's, I feel like this topic is so important, even for younger women, because long before your cycles, end, and you stop having periods, and you want to be able to like align yourself with your body and with your different helpers and your support system. It's so important. And I want to disrupt the narrative around older women not being sexy, not being vital, not being seen. I mean, because it's such an amazing time of life. And yes, there are certainly challenges, and things definitely shift physically, emotionally, spiritually. But I tell you what, for everything that you're going to lose or give up, you're going to gain so much more. It's such an incredible, and I wish when I was younger, I had a circle of women like this to come and sit with each other and ask questions and offer each other guidance, and someone who's been through that journey and now on the other side, who can offer like, hey, this is what helped me. This is what worked for me. This is what I encourage you to do. It's wonderful to have a place to have this conversation, because I think it's so overdue and so important.
Yes, absolutely overdue. And you are like glowing, right? Like you are such an example of what it means to step into that crone energy. Yeah, it's really cool to witness.
Well, thank you. I consider myself, I love to be called a crone, because to me, crones are juicy. Crones are alive. Crones are, I feel more like, certainly things have changed for me, right? And the few years of really the hormone shifting and changing, those were very difficult, but they were not without, like, I feel like I've become reacquainted with myself and my deep passions. And it's like, one of my favorite writers, Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolin, she's a writer and a psychiatrist. She has a couple of books about menopause, and she talks about how women, we're like a 3-act play, right? We have the maiden. The first act is the maiden. The second act is the mother phase, and then the curtain rises on your third act, which is the crone, and you get to decide, okay, what is this third act going to be about? And it can be informed by everything that's come before you, but you really like you get to set the stage and you get to decide. And I have to say that for me, I feel more creative, more ready to engage with life, and more certain about what I want. And it's the first time in my life where I don't give a crap about the male gaze or about what society's telling me to do. I really don't. And if someone would have told me that 20 years ago, I would have said, you're crazy, because all the messages we get around growing old as a woman in this society is negative. And I think that that's not the way it really isn't that way. And as women, we need to interrupt that narrative. We need to resist the toxic messages. We need to reclaim the juicy crone, and then we can be renewed.
I love how you said we get to set the stage for our third act, right?
Yes.
And that's like feels like maybe the first time in our lives as women where we actually get to set the stage. I know Hillary's trying to make it so our second act is more that we can set the stage as well, right? Let's
Yes.
bring that forward a little bit. But again, how can people find you? Because you have beautiful writing that you offer online. You have quite a following, so please share with us. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm delighted to share. You can find me on Soul Beckons. I post most of my writing on Facebook, but I am also found on Instagram as well. And I do have a website under the same name, Soul Beckons. And that was something, you know, I find that a lot of my writing is informed by the phases of womanhood. And I find my writing is getting more and more prolific the older I get. So I'm delighted to be able to like share this the beauty of this age, not just the difficulty. And I have to say that it's so important that we find our support, we find our helpers, because it's not something that we were ever meant to go through alone. And some of the people on this panel have been great, you know, influences to me, you know, like one of the things that helped me greatly through the physical changes and the emotional changes was connecting with an acupuncturist. You have the best of the best here right now with Hillary. She is a font of information, and getting to walk through that time in my life alongside her was I don't know if I could have done it without being able to go somewhere safe and feel supported. And, you know, like it's important to surround yourself with other women who encourage you to trust your body and trust your inner wisdom. Mm-hmm. So, and like this circle right here, this round table is a beautiful example of the power of that. So thank you.
Wow, well said. Again, like, how can we continue to come together in that sisterhood? I know, Kristina, you're going to speak about that, but first I want to hear from Lauren about the pelvic floor, because I actually think it's all going to be related to everything we've talked about. So Lauren, please share with us more.
Hi, yes, so many amazing speakers so far, and I'm just like very tiny amount am I touching on this also very broad topic, but I wanted to share this because like as humans, we have mirroring neurons, and especially for those of us that do have children, if you're setting the stage, like the quality of their attachment to us, their attachment styles as they move throughout life has everything to do with how much we know how to regulate our nervous systems. And many people, like really, even with all the schooling through the normal medical models, like are not given a handbook on how to regulate the autonomic nervous system. And so therefore we become almost victims of our nervous system, not understanding how it works, not understanding what small things we can do to relax the muscles in our body to therefore gain the full breadth of our frontal cortex, rather than being ran by the amygdala and all of these stress hormones, which then cause us to act in ways that we later regret. And it's really powerful information that our pelvic floor, by relaxing that, it is the one system in our body that by relaxing the pelvic floor, we can relax the other muscles. You can't relax your hand and then have your leg relax, but we can, by opening that square between our sit bones and our hip bones, actually start regulating our nervous system. And the other reason it's really important for women is if there is any kind of sexual trauma, that becomes constricted. And as a coping mechanism, many of us just check out of that area completely. So no idea that that is chronically tense, and therefore the sympathetic nervous system is chronically overactivated.
Ooh, again, this feels really important, necessary information that I'm like, why isn't every school teaching this information, right? What everyone has talked about today. Why aren't why aren't they plastered on the billboards versus all the attorneys, like, this is the information we need to really disseminate and get out there. I can't wait to hear more, Lauren. So thank you for sharing that. I know it's just like planting the seed, and now there's an awareness that, oh my gosh, if I can relax my pelvic floor, I have more ability to manage my entire system and to actually hook back into what makes me human, my frontal cortex, and make decisions based from there. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Cassie and Allie, I'm so looking forward to hearing about the power of sisterhood and play.
We get our wiggle on.
gotta
We
get
just
a
started
wiggle.
with a little bit of wiggle.
Yeah.
So Allie is actually studying to be a therapist right now. She's a counselor in training, and she just did a bunch of research on the inner child play and how that can kind of open up your brain. So I'll let Allie talk about that first.
Yes. So playing is so good for your brain. It opens up so many neural pathways that you just can't create just by sitting there and not playing. And it feels like as young women, when we're like entering male dominated spaces, that there's this expectation that we can't play or be silly, otherwise we won't be taken seriously, right? So our goal is to show people how to do that and still remain respectable women. Like, you can play and still be respectful.
Yeah, and honestly, when I envisioned putting together this, I couldn't have ever imagined how amazing it would be and how many fantastic people would be involved. But really, my driving force behind it is that knowledge that the powers that be, the patriarchy, they don't want us to do this. They don't want us to talk and hang out with our sisters. They don't want us to have friends who are older and younger than us that we impart wisdom on, or that we gain wisdom from. They don't want us to know about our pelvic floor, our menstrual cycle, anything like that. The wonders of menopause, the fact that that's why women uphold white supremacy, right? Like, they don't want us to love ourselves. They don't, because it just keeps the status quo as it is. So really, our offering being the magic of friendship and sisterhood, and just adding more like play and excitement and magic into your life. That's really because I believe it's a fundamental tenet of feminism to divest from what we are told we have to do, or what we're told is taboo. So I'm really, really happy to just see the way that all of these things weave into each other, because there's just something in each person's thing, as I was editing and compiling, that just gives way to another person's offering. Like, there's so much interconnectedness when it comes to womanhood, and we aren't taught, we aren't shown that, and this is really how we make a difference in our communities right now, is by having a bunch of women talking to each other. One thing that Allie and I say in our offering is, you can't have the women talking because then they start thinking. So it's really amazing to see a bunch of women talking and thinking, and giving a big middle finger to the patriarchy in many different ways. I feel like everybody's offering just gives way to that. So
Yeah, everyone's offering does touch on the taboo, doesn't it?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All things we're not supposed to really talk about.
Yep. In ours, we also give a chance for you to create a spell jar and to work with manifestations to bring in your sisterhood or to strengthen your sisterhood. So that's really cool. And hopefully it will, the energy that we've put into that will bring more conversations like this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, more conversations like this, please. And that, I think that does sort of give way to what I just wanted to bring to the table today, which is a conversation around death. And again, taboo topic, right? We don't think and talk about death enough in our society. That is my personal and professional opinion. And I think it leads to a lot of ills in our society, not knowing how to honor those who are dying, not knowing how to hold those who are grieving, thinking we have this sort of constant, we're living sort of in this reality that we may never die, but we're running our earth into a place where she's not going to be able to sustain us anymore, right? So like we have to have some sort of check system in place. And I think part of that check system is getting really okay with talking about death and dying and grieving, because that's actually where like the sacredness can be born, I believe. So Dr. Irving Yalom, so all therapists know this name, right? Like we study him in a lot of different courses, but we studied him throughout as many years as we're in graduate school. And he talks about taboo topics too. And he talks about death anxiety specifically. And I just wanted to read a quote by him. Grief and loss may awaken one and make one mindful of one's being. It's so short, but it's so, I think, to the point. And what is also really incredible about this time, so I used to work in end-of-life care before coming to Florida and starting integrative counsel. I used to work at end-of-life care up in New York. And again, really like some of my most memorable experiences are actually from that time. And what you can also find in that time is this depth of creativity. So I worked as an expressive arts therapist and a bereavement counselor up in New York. And so the depth of creativity and like how creativity can hold the liminal and actually begin to give voice to that which often you can't find words for. And so in Jen's and my offering, we lead an expressive arts activity or directive really around beginning to hold space for contemplating our own death. And as Jen mentioned earlier, parts of self, because as we're growing, there's of course going to be parts of self that have to be let go of. That's hard. It definitely feels like death. So yes, super excited how these all begin to come together. And I know I want to be respectful of time. I want to leave enough room for Q&A, but I want to kick off the Q&A by, because integrative counsel, at the cornerstone of what we do is creativity is part of our philosophy of care, is part of how we practice. And so I want to pose to the panelists is, how do you believe arts in all their multiplicity of forms can help move the needle on your specific topic? Can we start the questions there?
I'll start. For me, even this whole opportunity to build a workbook and put all of this knowledge and like self-work that I've done into a creative form and something different than the way that I normally present it made me really think about, you know, the topic itself and like how I have shown up for myself in self-care and self-love. And so I think that creativity is so important because it really does help us explore who we are and who we want to be and how we want to show up in those ways. And it allows us to address our challenges in a new way and with a new perspective that provides solutions out of, you know, whatever it is that we're going through. And so I just think that it's a great way to have our voices and opinions amplified when we're able to like put them in a creative process and like really get out of our head and like put it in a different form. So I appreciate this opportunity for me to be able to do that and to step out of my comfort zone and do something in a creative way.
Oh, great. I'm glad it was that for you, Kristina. Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to offer like what I thought about like for the menopausal age, what creativity. I feel like that is so vital to a woman staying juicy, staying fully alive, staying vital, is the ability to play, the ability to get her hands dirty, to find her passion and either sing it, dance it, get in the garden, dig with it, write. There's so many ways that a woman can use her voice and share. And sometimes this stage of life is actually the first time a woman may even think of creating or sharing, because the hopefully not, but a lot of women, you know, through the earlier parts of their life are so busy with life, busy with raising families, busy with taking care of everything and everyone. And once you enter menopause, I feel like creating is vital. Whatever way that you choose to do that, fine. But being creative, letting yourself create, letting yourself share, I think that helps keep us vital and helps keep us juicy. And because in my experience, the women that hold back and are afraid to share or afraid to try or afraid to do things for themselves, and get messy or try something new, those are the women that as they age, they do become brittle. They do kind of shrink. And so I think creativity is so important for at every stage, but especially I feel like for as we age, it's very important to stay creative or get creative.
You're going to be in my head forever. It's like, oh, I'm doing this so I can stay juicy.
Yes,
That is going to be my excuse. Like, ooh, I'm getting my creativity on so I can stay juicy. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I know we had some really good questions that have come in, so I want to leave time for those. And if anyone wants to speak to the arts and creativity, please feel free when you're potentially answering some of these additional questions. I think this one was specifically for you, Hillary, about the repatterning of the ruminating brain and negative self-talk, specifically around hormone replacement therapy, if I'm understanding that question.
Yeah, so I think that you have to know where you're starting from and know where you're at. So kind of like how I touched on briefly about how different hormones can make you feel a different way. Really understanding like what you are putting in your body is going to have a tendency to amplify certain emotions. So testosterone is going to make you feel like you want to get out there and be seen, which is also something that we've just seen recently within the last maybe 7 years, even be added into women's hormone replacement therapy. And it's really interesting because a lot of people don't understand that there aren't like a set limit of what is normal to put hormones in your body with HRT. So it's really up to the physician to just sort of decide what is okay for you. And that could be very heavily influenced by their cognitive bias. So understanding where you are and like what your tendencies are emotionally, and then also with the different parts of your cycle prior to needing HRT could have a big, that could be really helpful at understanding if it is working for you and sort of what it's illuminating and what it's shrinking. You know, if you go on, because there's all different ways to combine it, right? So if you were to go on just progesterone and you wonder why you don't want to people anymore and you're tired all the time, well, that's what progesterone does. It helps you sleep. It also makes you constipated and not want to people. So, you know, while the idea is to like bring you into balance, it may not necessarily always be doing that. So really kind of looking at your own self as an art, right? Like your own menstrual cycle is unique, just like your own path to fertility, your birth is going to be unlike anybody else's, right? And understanding that you are the actual artist in control of that, even if you are in a paradigm that's kind of top down with a doctor of telling you what to do. As far as the brain and rumination, I think my biggest thing that I see is that we don't get the words and our thoughts out of our head, right? And that's where we end up ruminating, because you have 60,000 thoughts a day. 75% of them are on repeat. Most of them come from your formative years of age 5 to 15 of watching your parents caretake, or and understanding that a lot of what's in there could actually be not yours, right? And like as Tracy said, I'm a big proponent of menopause. I'm in medical induced menopause, and I have to say, even with all of the knowledge that I had, I grieve that up front, and it's amazing. Like there is some really beautiful sides to going through menopause and being like really having the paintbrush in your own hand and being able to decide what is okay for you and what you want the back half of your life to look like. And that's not offered out there to people, but I'm here to tell you that it's true at any age. It doesn't have to be natural. So my suggestion would be, if you find yourself ruminating, to actually write the thoughts down in your head that are in your head on a piece of paper, do a mind dump, and then notice what is actually true, like what would hold up in a court of law, and underline that. And then notice all the rest and how your brain likes to color that. And then you can go a step further and understand, what hormones am I putting in my body? Is there like a thread or a theme that I can follow? Like, look at all of this angst. Okay, maybe I need to cut back on the testosterone. Look at all of these. I'm telling myself I'm tired constantly and I'm exhausted. Maybe there's too much progesterone. And then if you're considering HRT, doing that before, and then at different points on your journey to kind of check back in with how you're evolving, because it's hard to do it all in your head. It gets lost in there.
Yeah. Wow. This is fantastic information. Again, a lot of this is new to me regarding the hormone replacement therapy. So again, why aren't we learning this? But thank you for bringing it to the table. Okay. I know we're almost at time, but I want to ask these next questions because I think they're important. And so if anyone needs to step off, I absolutely understand, but I want to leave time for these questions that were submitted. How to be clear and assertive without too much fire. This is a really, I think, important conversation. And this is probably one that could be its own, webinar and Zoom and circle of sisters chat. But I'm curious if anyone has anything sort of off the top of their head that would be a response to this.
I would like to add a little nugget by first asking what is happening in my body right now. Because if we can like self-regulate in a relaxed muscle body, then we can gain access to that frontal cortex and be able to speak in ways that are assertive, but not aggressive.
So you're adding that little bit of pause prior, right? Prior to that knee jerk, just fire. It's like, ooh, let me step back. What's going on in my body first? Like maybe even relaxing the pelvic floor, I imagine, right?
Yes.
Creating some self-regulation, and then maybe like finding methods to begin to, like Hillary mentioned, the brain dump. What is true here before really clarifying what is important to say? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. Did I hear that correctly? Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else want to add to that before I go to this next question, which again is like, could it be an entire conversation in and of itself? But my mother's generation burned their bras for feminism, but then drank the Kool-Aid and emulated men. Are young women today still stuck there? Being a Generation Xer, Hillary, I think you and I are both Generation Xers. When I was like really getting clear on your bio, I'm like, I think we're both at UF at the same time in graduate school. I was like, I am so much in between these two paradigms. And I often get sucked into the Kool-Aid, very much so. And so curious if any of the panelists have something they want to share around this specifically.
I just want to say that I think there's hope, because a lot of the younger women that I see, because I am unfortunately seeing younger women turn up with infertility. I don't notice as much as the conditioning, people pleasing that we saw in our generation. So that for me is like, I'm hopeful that they maybe do have a little bit more understanding, but I would love for one of the younger women on the panel to speak to that, because, and that the other part that I'll say, like, I totally identify with you getting sucked back into that, because it was like this greatest achievement to show that we were equal. And the way in which we did that was to rise to the masculine way, but that automatically assumes that it's a hierarchy and that it's better.
Well said.
And that was the piece that was missing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but I would love to hear what one of the younger women had to say.
I feel like we're taught still to lean in. You know, that's that comment, that lean in, which really
Yeah.
just is a code word for act like a man.
Yeah.
That's what they tell you to do. But I feel like for me personally, I take that pressure and that like messaging from this wave of feminism that's so be a man, to instead remind myself of where I am not acting like a man. For example, being too worried about being too fiery. Men do not think about that. They don't worry about shit like that.
It's like they're very blunt and like straightforward, and like I think like our generation, we're learning how to like find the balance between the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah.
So like for me, I like, my feminism is not like trying to be like a man. It's like being inspired by the masculinity in conjunction with my femininity.
Yeah.
Well said, Allie. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And again, like, I have something in my mind that I'm working on that like speaks to this in the future. Like, but again, we'll leave that to another conversation, because I'm like, ooh, this is a really important topic. It feels like it's how to find that balance.
And I sort of feel like it ties into what you're saying, Sarah, that like when we see younger women, and all just women stepping away from being like a man, that is when we really see social change, right? Like, it's not continuing to just emulate the better version, which is not, men are not the better version. Men are men and women are women, and then there's lots of great things in between, right? But it changes so many conversations to step away from trying to just be equal. It makes space for much more nuance.
Well, I you know, and trying to translate this question into something sort of related to my topic, it's like my first reaction is, you know, we want, well, I guess I'm thinking about the assertiveness and the fire part still. Like, I'm still back on that one. But you know, like, we want, for at least for white women, to be assertive, but in a space where people of color are centered. You know, so in terms of, just back on the topic of assertiveness, you know, as white people, we actually can really harness our power, especially as white women, but we want to do it from a place where we're centering people of color, making the issues that are relevant to people of color the most important. And from there, we want to assert ourselves. You know, we want to have our testosterone intact and, you know, and be fiery, right? We want to be fierce in our allyship and really demand change, you know, in our places of work, demand that there's equity, demand that there's, you know, safe spaces for people of color to exist, and that there are more people of color in our workplaces or represented in all aspects of our social life. So I think that, yeah, you know, the way I think of that is we want to decenter ourselves as white people, center people of color, and then be assertive, you know, use our testosterone and be fiery, be fierce.
Sort of like decentering ourselves is kind of decentering ourselves from the umbrella of white supremacy. And I think in that question, when it's like women are taught to emulate, you know, we got sucked into the Kool-Aid of emulating men. It's really, who are we emulating? Like, which men are we emulating? Are we emulating the divine masculine when we do that? We're emulating something quite different than what is really the beauty of masculinity. And it's that, I think that is a really interesting top point. Yeah.
And I would even say, like, who we're aligning ourselves with. Are we aligning ourselves with the white supremacist, patriarchal, you know, construct, or can we disalign ourselves from that? And to do that is actually to really become feminist and to become anti-racist.
I just wanted to add in to, like, I think both of those last two questions really go well together, and being sucked into, you know, doing what the men have done before. I've definitely heard that and been like, in order to succeed, you've got to do X, Y, and Z and climb the ladder. And then when in asserting myself in a clear and just calm way, I've been told that I'm being too harsh. So there's also this like need to really know your worth and to know like what you stand for, and that is worth fighting for, no matter what somebody else comes and tries to direct you on a different way. Because when you're really clear about what's important to you, I feel like it's easier to, you know, navigate those worlds and to continue to show up in a way where you can express yourself, and whether somebody likes it or they don't like it, you're okay with that, because at the end of the day, like, it's not about these other people's opinions or about how they think you should move in the world, but about how you feel best showing up and doing what you do.
Thank you. Yeah. Any final thoughts from our panelists? This was like, we maybe should have started with, with this, and then, you know, everything else sort of organized around these questions. But yeah.
Yeah, when I saw the questions, my first thought was like, oh, Kristina's offering is central to all of these answers, right? So, you know, if you know your worth, you aren't going to get sucked back in. And I know for myself, when I do get sucked into that toxic masculinity or competition, like that piece, it's because I'm trying to prove myself, right? And that, like, how to be clear and assertive without too much fire. If you really have your own back and you know your self-worth, you're not going to like go ruminate on what you should have said differently. You're just going to accept that that's how that conversation went down and own it. And you know, and the same with, you know, the hormone replacement therapy. Like, it is such a great time to repattern your brain in that time of life, because you might not necessarily have to be taking care of others, but it's also scary, right? You're talking about undoing like decades of concretized thought. So, you know, I think the younger you can start with self-worth, the better off you're going to be at every stage. And you know, like you said in the beginning, or I think Cassie said, like, they don't want us to know these things. They don't want us to be having this conversation, which is why these things are so important. And whoever that was that asked about the question about too much fire, like, I so want to just sit with you and be like, what's too much? Like, I just want to encourage you to be big. Take up space.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other final thoughts from our panelists?
I just, again, want to reiterate like how wonderful it is for women to connect and to share and to just like talk about all of these topics, and how much each and every topic has just informed my own well-being and my own care and knowledge. And I can't wait to continue to bring that to the other women that I continue to connect with in life. So thank you all for being you.
The ripple effect, right? That we offer in the sisterhood. Tracy, I know you came back on for a moment. Did you want to share something?
Oh, I was just wanted to piggyback onto what everyone else said about about the fire, the question of like, is it too much fire? And how do you know when it's too much? But I agree with what was said, what Hillary said about like I would love to sit with the person who wrote that and ask them to, like, where is that like worry coming from? Like in our life, I mean, if we're feeling like we're being too much, where, like, what situation is that arising in? Because I think sometimes as women, we have a tendency to like contain ourselves and not really let the fire emerge. And I was just thinking that, like, my topic, I actually named it like initiation by fire, because I think that whereas it's important that we don't get aggressive, right? We don't like follow the male, you know, the way that the male energy has like the patriarchy kind of makes us want to, like, you know, like battle and compete. I think that as women, we do have a fire, and sometimes we're sat with it like a smoldering, like a slow burn inside, and that can eat away at us. It can eat away at our bodies, at our minds, at our spirit. So I invite women to maybe invite a little bit more of that fire to arise. If you're in a situation, if that's coming from like someone you trust, or in a situation where you know they've got your best interest in mind, then yeah, sit with it and be like, maybe I could have approached that differently. But if it's coming from, you know, from the society at large, or the workspace where it's kind of like male dominated, or under the umbrella of white supremacy, which both things are so connected, then I invite you to ignite that fire a little bit more. And I just think, like, probably as the oldest woman on the panel, it's so beautiful to see all the ages come together. And I think what you had said, I wrote it down, I thought it was beautiful. You said that the circle of sisters chat that this was, what I find that to be like, wow, yeah, like let's do this more. Let's create spaces where women can come together of different ages and share questions and share concerns, and just, you know, like share our brilliance. So I'm so touched by being here and by listening. I feel so empowered by just listening to all of you people who are just so, I feel like you're all so much younger, and like in some ways, you know, like it's beautiful to see the younger, like how much more in touch with things like women are, and how they want to come together. I think that that's just an incredible thing. And I feel like that's where our power lies, no matter what age we're at. If we can come together and have a circle of sisters chat about everything and anything, we are just, we are no longer we're unstoppable. So I invite us to keep doing this. And thank you for inviting me to sit in the circle with you and all of you. And for the women that showed up today, you know, I appreciate, I know what it's like to set the time aside, and or if you're getting it this via recording, I really appreciate that you showed up. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Cassie, I know you're going to share with people how they can actually obtain these offerings.
It's true. It's very true. So right now, you can actually go to integrativecouncil.com/empower. Link is all involved in every Luma email that you've gotten as well. So you'll get an email. It probably is sent already automatically. That will give you a link to that. So in that bundle is an offering from each one of these amazing women. It's fantastic. It's just, I tried to calculate like the actual value of these offerings, and it is hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I mean, and that's me being very, very conservative and lowballing all of these ladies. So you can get it for $75 right now, and you can get 7 modules, pretty awesome. And so that's available right now in our shop. Again, you can go to integrativecounsel.com/empower.
Awesome. And again, $75 is a really incredible value for all the wisdom that these women bring. And we do hope to continue this conversation. I again want to thank the panelists for your time, for showing up and sharing, all of you, and for the message that you're sharing with the world. Like, we need to get these on the billboard. That's my, like, we need to get these messages on the billboards. We'll know we started making true impact when that's happened. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.